Hi everyone, it's Nicole from Mama Elephant, and today I'm sharing a rainbow birthday messages card featuring the brand new birthday messages greeting stamp set for the March 2019 release. I've created this background with the cloudy day cover and then added lots of little agenda critters to my background with stamped sentiments. We're using multiple sentiments from the Birthday Wishes stamp set. We're going to start with the cloudy day cover and mask off different areas of this background. I'm going to leave the stitched edge to the outside edge. I'm going to mask that so that it's left white, but the rest of it we're going to ink in some rainbow pastel colors. This is going to take a little bit of work to move the masks for each section to give them that rainbow look, but it's going to match our stamped sentiments. We're going to start with picked raspberry distress ink and apply that ink to the first section using the mini ink blending tool. When I get the ink the way I want it to look, I'm going to move those masks so that I mask off the top section, and then we're just masking that next section down. So there's going to end up being 5 different sections, and I'm just going to keep moving my Post-it tape. I reused the same pieces throughout the entire design. I didn't use any additional tape. I just kept moving these, masking off the edges, and then moving down to the next section, and then the next section. After picked raspberry, we're going to use carved pumpkin for our orange layer. We're going to end up having more colors of sentiment strips than we are going to have of rainbow backgrounds, but there's really only 5 distinct sections in this cloudy day cover, so I felt like that worked a little bit better. I just picked kind of the first 5 colors of my rainbow and went with that. We're now applying the carved pumpkin ink. I'm concentrating that ink along the top edge and then just kind of gradually lightening it for that ombre effect towards the bottom edge of that section. Again, we're just going to move these down a little bit and keep working on the area. And I noticed I got a little orange on the side, so I'm just going to put my masks back in place and add a little more pink ink over that area. So let's mask the next section. And I want to use the mask, the little Post-it tape mask that kind of fits that better. Let's add our tape to the sides, and the next section is going to be squeezed lemonade. Again, we're going to concentrate that ink along the top edge and slightly lighten it towards the bottom edge. It's a little easier to mask off each section first and then go ahead and add your masks to the side. So I went ahead and lifted those up and masked it off. I'm applying that squeezed lemonade ink now to the middle section of our background. And then we will move down to our next section, which will be Twisted Citron. I definitely went with a more pastel rainbow, which I've been doing in a lot of my projects lately, very influenced by spring. Our final section is Cracked Pistachio, again a pastel color choice, and we're going to add that ink mostly to the top edge of the cloud. And once we have our ink all applied to this section, we can remove all of our masks. This gives us a really pretty background to build on. At this point, you could go ahead and stamp some little stars from the birthday bash. However, I hadn't thought of it yet, and so I went ahead and stamped that when I put the card together, but it would be a lot easier to do it right now and then come back to that, or go ahead and put everything on top of that later. This is the rest of the scrap of cardstock that I die cut the Cloudy Day cover from, and it's going to fit my little agenda critters perfectly. We are using critters from the little dog agenda, cat agenda, bunny agenda, monkey agenda, chickie agenda, and bear agenda. I love that there are so many options available for us. I picked the images that had balloons. I wanted all of them to look like they were floating up in the clouds for this card today. That really works with our background, and it also lends itself well to the birthday theme that we're working on. The colors of Copic markers I used are shown across the top of the screen for each section I'm coloring. The Chickie is Y11, 08, and 19 with R30 for the cheeks. The balloons are RV 52 and 55 and R35 and 37 for this image. The nose for the Chickie is YR04. These images were stamped on Nina's smooth white cardstock with Hero Arts Intense Black ink. This is a fantastic ink for Copic coloring. Our monkey is going to be E30, 31, 55, and 57 with R30 for the cheeks. And we're going to slightly build up to the intensity. I erred on the side of caution and went a little lighter to start with, and we're going to just gradually darken him up. For my balloons, you might notice that the first balloon had pink and red, the next balloon orange, and then when we get to the bear, it's going to be yellow and green. What I ended up doing was adding more color, more rainbow color to the balloons than what I had for the background. This is really similar to the sentiment strips that we're going to stamp here in a little bit, where we're going to add more of those rainbow colors, and this is a great way to implement more of those than what we could use in the background. The bear is E31, 55, and 57. Similar colors to our monkey. And his balloons, as I mentioned, are going to be yellow and green. So the first one is Y11, 08, and 19, the same colors we used for the Chickie. And the second balloon he's holding is going to be YG21, 23, and 17. Next we have the cat, and it's going to be holding a mint balloon with BG11 and 13. The cat itself is going to be colored with E11, 97, and 17, and given some little stripes. I'm going to lay down my base color of E11 first, shade with E97, and then draw in some little stripes with E17. I can even go back in and add additional shading if I need to and darken up those stripes as well. The bunny is going to be really light with warm gray 0, 0, 1, and 4. Almost like a white bunny, but we want to add some shading to him so he has more depth and dimension like the rest of the critters. He's going to be holding both a light and dark blue balloon. This is going to give us room then to add a purple balloon to the dog's hand. B00 and 04 were used for one of the balloons, and B24 and 28 for the darker blue balloon. Finally, we have our little agenda dog and balloon. The balloon is BV11 and 13, which is a blue-violet color combination, but it works really great for purple. And then we're going to make a spotted dog by laying down a base color of warm gray 00 first and making spots with warm gray 8. I can then soften the edges of those spots with warm gray 1. And we will add the eye detail in after we've die cut all of these images with the coordinating little agenda critter dies for each set. On another piece of smooth white cardstock now, I'm going to take the Birthday Messages stamp set. This stamp set has tons of fantastic sentiments that you can use for all kinds of birthday cards. We're going to use 6 sentiments from the stamp set today, one for each of our critters. I don't have to worry about lining these up perfectly. I'm going to instead die cut each of these phrases with either a sentiment strip from the Sweet Feline Creative Cuts die collection or the Sentiment Strips Creative Cuts die collection. Both of these are brand new for the March 2019 release. The ones from the Sweet Feline Creative Cuts set are a little narrower, and the ones from the Sentiment Strips are a little wider. The way these work is if it's one line of text, I think that the ones from Sweet Feline work really well. If there's 2 lines of text, the ones from the Sentiment Strips works great. So almost all of these were die cut with one of the 2 sizes of Sweet Feline strips. And then the last sentiment that I used for my card is going to be stamped with, die cut with one of the sentiment strips because it's 2 lines of text. I'm using Lawn Fawn inks to stamp each of my sentiments. The first one was stamped with plastic flamingo ink. Then the next strip was stamped with carrot ink. The third phrase with sunflower ink. The fourth phrase with cilantro ink. Then Minty Fresh, and finally Forget-Me-Not ink. These rainbow colors coordinate back to the colors of balloons that I've used. The only color of ink I didn't use for a sentiment strip was purple. Once I have the rest of my sentiment strips stamped, and you can see I didn't have to worry about lining them up at all and getting them straight to cut into a strip. I love this because even if you stamp it a little wonky, you're able to die cut it perfectly straight with a sentiment strip. You can even trim off the edges of the sentiment strips if you wanted to shorten them up. I left all of mine exactly as is for my card today. You can see a couple of them over on the right side of the screen. Even that long sentiment strip from the Sweet Feline Creative Cuts fits that long phrase that reads "A million birthday wishes just for you" perfectly. I'm going to tape them in place with a little Post-it tape. I just reused the Post-it tape for die cutting these and run this through my die cutting machine until I have all of my sentiment strips die cut and ready for my card. When I have all of these pieces die cut, we can start putting the entire thing together. We have our background, we have our images, and finally we have our sentiments. Repeating sentiments can be so effective when used in this way. To add even more interest to my background, I'm going to stamp the trio of stars from the Birthday Bash stamp set in the same colors of ink that I used for the sentiment strips. So kind of following the same design, we're going to stamp plastic flamingo, then we'll stamp some carrot ones, sunflower, cilantro, minty fresh, and I think that's it. I just followed the colors in the background as well. Then we're going to pop up our sentiment strip with a foam adhesive strip and some foam adhesive back behind our little agenda critters. Popping them up with foam adhesive gives them more definition and really makes them pop from the background. I'm overlapping the little critter agendas over part of the sentiment strips. That kind of helps shorten them up a little bit, plus it ties the whole thing together. I'm offsetting them, going every other one. So the first critter, the Chickie, is over on the right side. The second is the monkey on the left. The bear is then again over on the right. The cat on the left, the bunny on the right, and the dog finishes down on the left side. As I'm applying these, I'm adding those stars throughout my card. This adds just a little additional interest to our background and ties into our birthday theme. I love being able to mix and match all of these fun little agenda critters from different sets. If you have critters from multiple sets, you might try mixing and matching them as well. Because of their small size, it's really easy to use multiples on your card designs. Let's add our bunny and then finally finish with our little puppy there. I'm gauging where to put the foam adhesive on the back of the critters depending on how much of them is overlapping the sentiment strip. Anywhere they overlap the sentiment strip, you don't need to put foam adhesive back behind that. Once I have all of these little critters and sentiment strips in place with the birthday messages, we can take this panel and adhere it to a white top fold card base and add detail to the eyes on all the critters with a black gel pen. This makes their eyes pop. This is a finishing detail that I always add at the end of any project using a critter. I'm also going to take a white pen and add highlights to the balloons and white dots to the cheeks on all of the critters. Glossy accents is going to be used on all of the balloons to give them a glossy raised finish. I like to use this fine tip applicator. It works especially well for teeny tiny images like these little balloons. After I have adhered my panel to the card base, I decided that in addition to the stamped balloons in the background, I wanted to add some iridescent star confetti throughout that's going to add a little shimmer and shine. The Pretty Pink Posh iridescent star confetti is perfectly sized. It really complements the stamped stars in our background, but it's got that iridescent look, so it's going to add just a little pizzazz to the card. We're going to scatter these throughout, adding just a few of them here and there. I'm using the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium to adhere them and using a crystal katana to pick them up and put them exactly where I want them to go. A jewel picker or a crystal katana, something to that effect, is so handy when working with confetti or sequins or teeny tiny die cut pieces, as you don't have to use your fingers to try to position any of those things and instead can use a tool. That bullet tip point on the crystal katana is slightly sticky, so the confetti pieces will stick to it and you can pick them up and pop them right in place. We'll add just a couple more up at the top, and that is going to finish up our rainbow sentiment strips showcasing the Mama Elephant Birthday Messages stamp set. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this card featuring new stamps from the March 2019 Mama Elephant release. The supplies I used to create this card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more cards featuring Mama Elephant stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thanks so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.